Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today is day 193 of the ongoing Russia-Ukrainian war. And quite frankly, there are no real territorial changes to report. That would indicate that the the much hyped Ukrainian counteroffensive against Russian forces on the western bank of the Dnieper River seems to have stalled. We'll kind of zoom in here real quick, and you can kind of see where initial reports have the farthest extent of Ukrainian penetrations into Russian-held territory. And again, it would appear that the Ukrainians were really focused on trying to roll up Russian forces in this northeastern quadrant of the western bank of the Dnieper River. Now, with that being said, just because there are no territorial changes does not mean there is any less in terms of how intense the ongoing fighting is. And again, both sides are continuing to go at each other unabated, and both sides continue to take massive casualties in this ongoing war. We would anticipate that because the Ukrainians are on the offensive and they're attacking, for the most part, prepared Russian positions on the western bank of the Dnieper River, it would stand to reason that Ukrainian casualties would be a bit higher than Russian casualties as the Ukrainians are on the reported offensive in this area. Now, how long the Ukrainians will stay on this offensive, and it's difficult to say at this point. I would say as news of this offensive operation in the West kind of dies down until you really don't hear anything about it anymore. And if you look at the news headlines right now, you really don't see anything about it being reported. And at the same time, the Ukrainian political apparatus is also trying to temper expectations of the current reported offensive operation by Ukrainian forces. Now, with that being said, the Ukrainians are still utilizing some of this advanced Western weaponry that has been shipped to the Ukrainian military. They continue to use the HIMARS with great effect, and at the same time, we continue to see the Ukrainians improving in terms of the use of these drones. And I'm sure all of you have seen the videos that are circulating of these small civilian drones dropping these small either shape charge or fragmentation devices on Russian armored vehicles. And you gotta give them, I mean, the ingenuity that these guys are fielding in terms of how they're using these drones. I think it's really going to change warfare in the future. I would say that in the decades to come, 10, 20 years into the future, the battlefield is going to be littered with these smaller drones being used in direct combat missions against individual ground targets and individual ground forces. And I think we're just starting to learn and understand how capable these small drone systems are. You look at the Bayraktar TB2 drone, how effective that system has been. Incredibly wonderful system in terms of its capabilities, which have been proven in the Azeri-Armenian conflict. It's been proven in Syria, and now we've seen the TB2 Bayraktar being effectively used against Russian forces in this ongoing conflict. And I would have to say at this point, we'd have to see the Russians start to invest in some of this drone technology. Look, if we can substantiate that the Iranians are providing the Russians some attack drones because the Russians just don't have that capability, that is not a good sign for the Russian Federation, and they're going to have to play catch up pretty quick or they are going to be left behind in this developing race in drone warfare. Another issue that I think deserves discussion is the possibility that the Ukrainians have launched 40 air sorties over the past 24 hours against Russian forces. Is it true? Is it propaganda? Is it the fact that they are simply counting some of these small drone operations as an air sortie? Given the propaganda that's coming out of the Ukrainian side, it's difficult to say at this point. I would assume at this point they are not including all 40 of those air sorties as being fixed wing tactical air assets flying against Russian forces on the western bank of the Dnieper River. I just don't see how, quite frankly, how that is possible, given the Russians' ability to go after, and they do have that capability to go after aircraft on the ground if they can find out where the Ukrainians are launching these aircraft from. Is it strips of highway that they are using? Is it air bases that they're quickly repairing and then fielding some of these aircraft? Difficult to say at this point because information is so hard to come by in this ongoing war. But we'll continue to cover and monitor the situation as obviously events warrant within the context of the western bank of the Dnieper River offensive that is occurring. In the east, we continue to still see Russian forces progressively trying to move towards Bakhmut, both just to the north and south of Bakhmut. And if you look at some of these video reports that are coming in of just the amounts of Russian heavy artillery being used on some of these Ukrainian positions, which are tantamount to World War I trench warfare in some cases. Very, very strange war if we look at this. We have drones being used, we have advanced aircraft, we have tanks, armored fighting vehicles, and then we have trench warfare. Very, very strange war this is indeed. But again, we will continue to cover, report, and bring you more content for your consumption. Thanks for joining us today, and always have a good day.